Affinity Photo is a direct competitor to Adobe Photoshop. The difference? Photoshop costs $600 a year, while Affinity Photo is a one-time payment. And if you decide to kindly cancel your Adobe subscription, you're going to be slapped with a big cancellation fee, sometimes more than the cost of Affinity Photo. This leaves a lot of people with only two options: venture out into the seas where danger awaits, or look for alternatives. That's Affinity Photo. So let's test it out. I just yoinked the Affinity Photo free trial, as one does, and let's download it for Windows. What's the difference between MSI-X and MSI/EXE? Let's just go for the first one. Download initiated. While it's downloading, let me explain what I'm going to try to do. I just yoinked one of the thumbnails from one of my previous videos that I made in Photoshop, and so I thought, why not try to recreate this inside of Affinity Photo and see how well it compares to Adobe Photoshop. There are a bunch of different layers, masking, groups, different effects, so I think this will be a decent stress test for Affinity Photo. That's the plan. Oh, it has downloaded. Install Affinity Photo 2. It's the first time I'm seeing this kind of an installer. It's weird. Install. Thanks for downloading. Please enter your Affinity ID and password below to activate your license. What's my password? 7-day trial available. Start free trial. Successful. Continue. Analytics. Would you like to contribute? No. Oh, the lessons window just popped up. Since I haven't watched a single Affinity Photo tutorial, I should probably go through all of these, like the photo basics. Yes, I should. So what is all of this? There are tools on the left, just like in Photoshop. There are a bunch of panels on the right, also just like in Photoshop. And there are a bunch of controls and menus at the top, just like in Photoshop. Feels familiar. Let's go to File, New, and create a new file. Oh, this is definitely a different interface. A YouTube thumbnail is 720p, so 1280 by 720 pixels. Image placement, prefer embedded, prefer linked. No idea what that is. Everything else looks good. Create. Boom. Ooh, and the tools light up nicely. Okay, let's first configure everything and see if all the keyboard shortcuts are at least similar. So in Photoshop, to zoom out, I usually do Alt and scroll on my mouse, or hold Z to temporarily toggle the zoom tool and then drag left or right. Let's see if that works here. Alt and scroll just scrolls up and down. What about Z? Oh, this works. Oh, it snaps into place when it hits 100%, which is the actual size. I'm not sure if I like that. So let's go to File or Edit and look for Settings. Control, comma. That's a great keyboard shortcut. The same as on macOS. Command, comma on macOS brings up settings of any application. Ooh, there are a bunch of settings. That's what I like to see. Enable save over imported PSD files. So you can import Photoshop files into Affinity Photo. Okay. Import PSD smart objects where possible. Yes. Performance. RAM usage limit. So it's limited to 24 gigabytes. It goes up to 65 gigabytes, but I have only 32 gigabytes. What? That doesn't make any sense. Undo limit 1000. That's pretty good. User interface. Background gray level. Well, that doesn't do anything. This one does something. Let's move it slightly up. UI brightness. Oh, there it is. I can make it completely black. Let's do slightly brighter, similar to what I have in Photoshop. UI contrast, default, high. Oh, that just reset everything. UI style, dark, light. There's light mode. Doesn't look as good. Icon style, color or mono. So this removes all the colors from all the tools. Let's do color, why not? Tools. Use mouse wheel to zoom. Yes. Shortcuts. Here we go. Here are all the categories for all the keyboard shortcuts. This will probably cost a lot of time, so I'm not going to go here now. Okay, those are all the settings. I'll definitely be coming back to shortcuts many times. So let's begin building out the thumbnail. I don't like this panel here, so I'm going to close this. I probably shouldn't have closed it. Adjustments. Oh, there we go. Beautiful. So first, let's begin with the background. It's completely black at the bottom, and there's a slightly brighter blue color on top of it, which is hidden on the edges of the layer with a layer mask. This is how it looks like, just blue going into black. So let's try to create that first. The layers panel is here, and I think this is the color. No, this is adjustments. What's here? These are blend modes, and this is for a layer mask. So can't you add a single color layer within Affinity Photo? That's a group. That's a pixel. Okay. So what happens if I paint with the brush tool? Oh, it becomes a pixel. Drag to start painting, drag shift to continue last stroke, drag and alt to use color picker. So if I just click alt, it doesn't give me a color picker. I need to hold alt and then start dragging for the color picker to appear. That's definitely strange behavior. The letter X switches my background and foreground colors, exactly like in Photoshop. Boop, 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 boop. And if I do shift and click, it continues the previous stroke. That's nice. Oh, and this hides and shows the layer. That's interesting. I'm definitely used to it being on the left. So how do I add a solid color layer? Or do I have to just color this whole thing black and that's how it's done? Brushes, stock. Wait, there's free stock photos built into Affinity Photo. Hello? Yes, please. Cow? No way. So do I just drag and drop? No way. Just imported this cow straight from within Affinity Photo. That's crazy. How to add solid color Affinity Photo. photo. From the layers menu, select new fill layer. Okay. Is that right click? Is it here? Mask layer, adjustments, layer effects, live filters, group layers, add pixel layer. I don't see any fill layers. Maybe it's here. Layer, new fill layer. Oh, it's here. Why is it there? So it just filled with white. Can I now change the color? Oh, double clicking on the layer image fits it to the screen, which is completely different behavior compared to Photoshop, because here it opens the actual color picker with which I can change the color. That's interesting. Do I change this? Oh, yes, it's down here. Okay, so let's select this color, paste it in over here. Do I click away? Yes. And enter or close. Wait, why did it not change? Oh, there's also fill up here. So let's try to change it from here. Paste it in here. Enter. Yes, there we go. I need the other one for the black color underneath. So I'm holding Alt and dragging the layer to hopefully duplicate it. And yes, it does duplicate. Ooh, what is this color wheel? Hex sliders. Oh, I can just do it here. So now there's a black one underneath. And so let's mask this one out so that only the center is visible. This is the layer mask. Oh, that's different. In Photoshop, the layer mask is right next to the layer, but here it's underneath, which is kind of suspicious. And I'm not sure if I like that. Or maybe I don't yet know that I like it. So let's search for a gradient tool. This probably? Yes. Okay, so here I'm assuming I can customize the gradient. Radial. I want a radial gradient going from black to white. Just like this, but inversed. So reverse. And I think we are good. So if I drag it, oops, what happened here? Oh, did I accidentally click on the layer mask? Why is it white here in the preview? What if I double click? What happened? There's a little pixel here where it took me. What's that? Can I delete it? And that deleted the mask. Let's add the mask once again. Now it's white. Good. Gradient tool and then paint like so. Okay, I need to choose radial gradient. And then once again, the colors are gone. Why are they gone? Let's do black on one side. Yes. And like this. Wait, why is it fully black? Am I customizing the mask here and not the actual gradient tool? Yes, the mask becomes darker as I switch between these colors. Okay. So how do I customize the gradient tool then? Like what happens when I do this? It just gives me a normal gradient, but how do I customize it? Or do I just do this and then customize it? That doesn't make any sense. So now if I change this to a radial gradient, what? That's so weird. Nevertheless, we got the background. Oh, I can collapse the mask. That's beautiful. So now if I add a mask here, will it also... Yes, very nice. You have a bunch of options. So let's do a new layer. That's a new document. Control Shift N. Yes, that adds a new layer. Wait, I just moved this layer inside of the fill layer. What is that? What if I paint here? So what is this? Oh, this is where the fill is showing through. What if I add another layer and then move it inside here? What does this do? So it reveals and shows both of them. They're all like different layer masks. So this layer mask added these black edges. So you can see here in the preview, it hid the edges of the fill layer. Then this one hid everything on top of that except this mess over here. And then this one hid everything from the previous two layers and only revealed this snake pattern. And this right here is black because it's black in the second layer. That's insane. I now see why the mask doesn't appear on the right side. It's because you can have infinite amount of masks. I then have this circle in the center underneath the penguin. So let's add that first. Boink. This is one of the wallpapers that I experimented making for one of my wallpaper packs, but it's not finished. Why does this pop up every time I want to place something? Oh, that's because I don't need to click enter to place something. In Photoshop, if you move something, you have to click enter to then place it in place. But in Affinity Photo, you just move stuff without clicking enter and it stays there. Interesting. So let's... Oh, I did it again. Okay, so let's create a mask. Wait, can a normal layer be just a mask for this? How do I make it so? Oh, yes. And now if I just get the circle tool, the ellipse tool, I can just draw this, put it in the middle. How do I make it snap in the center? Is it control? Oh, control duplicates. Oh, that's the center, the little dot in the middle. Wait, is it? No. Okay, let's see the menus. Arrange, move back one, move inside, outside, align, center. Okay, that's cool. There's a magnet here called snapping. So does that work? There we go. So now I want this. Wait, why does it move with the circle as well? Can I not move it without the circle? How can I only move the layer without the layer mask? Hold up, Control, Shift, Alt. Do I have to lock this every time? Even if I lock the layer, this moves with the layer mask? Or is this not considered a layer mask? What if I add just a normal mask, then paint something here, and if I move this layer, does it move with the mask? It does. And if I lock the mask, so yes, the behavior is the same, just like with the circle. So how do I make the mask stay in place? Do I have to remove it from the group, then transform this, and then move this into the group now? But that's so weird. Okay, but I'm just realizing that I need the opposite effect. Not black in the middle and wallpaper on the sides, but the complete opposite. Wait, hold on. This is not even a layer mask now. If this was hiding the wallpaper, the blue should be visible underneath the circle. circle. So what does putting layers together like this do even? Is this like a group? I can put something in a group. So no. Or is it a group? Surely not. And if so, why is this on top of that layer? What is that? Okay, I'm fully confused. Let's do the eclipse tool once again, then move it into the center and then clip this layer onto the eclipse. So is this just a clipping mask? Oh, I see. Okay. The way it seems to work in Affinity Photo is the top layer are the bounds and what's underneath are within that layer. So now if I add another one in here and paint, it should only paint within the circle. Yes, it only paints within the circle. So this is just like the clipping mask in Photoshop. It's when you do Alt and then click in between the two layers. That's crazy. So next we have Kowalski holding an Arch Linux logo. Kowalski, Penguin, PNG. I think that's the one I used. Copy image, Control V to paste. Okay, so now the question is, if I resize Kowalski and then size it back up again, does it lose quality just like in Photoshop? So now it's very small and it doesn't lose quality, which means that there are probably no smart objects within Affinity Photo. Let's double check. Affinity Photo cannot create smart objects. That's a feature of Photoshop. Live filters act in a very similar way to smart objects in Photoshop. You can apply one and then go back sometime later to edit it. That's very interesting. Let's position the penguin. Next is the Arch Linux logo. Boink. Next, he needs to be holding the actual Arch Linux logo, which means that I'm going to need the arm. Kowalski, penguin, and here's one with the arm. And paste it in so I can recreate the arm. Let's make sure they're pretty similar size. How do I decrease the opacity? Beautiful. Oh, this is so strange. When I'm resizing from the corner, I don't have to hold shift to resize proportionally. And if I'm resizing from here, I have to hold shift, which is so annoying. Just make it the same. Make it so I either have to hold shift or not hold shift to resize normally, because I keep just doing this all the time. There we go. And let's try the pen tool to recreate the arm. Okay, seems just like your regular pen tool. Wait, it's suggesting where I should place the handle? How does it know? Okay, can I press Alt and move only one handle? Yes, I can. Oh, what happened there? Okay, and can I turn this into a shape? Maybe I don't even have to turn this into a shape. Can I just choose a different fill? Ooh, yes, I can. And now to move this, I can just move it around. One arm is going to be here. Alt, drag, then flip horizontal like this. Oh, that's not it. How do I flip it horizontally? Is it under transform? Yes, flip horizontal. I'm sure there's an easier way. Can I select both and change their colors both at the same time? Oh, I can. Okay. Success. We have yoinked the arms. Next, our hands will need some detail. Here on his head, there's a bunch of light and a bunch of texture, so I want to replicate that for the hands. Also, I just watched this video from Affinity Photo, clipping versus masking layers, and turns out that I didn't understand it correctly at all. So here's what I know. If I add a new layer, and let's paint something with blue over here, this is a normal layer. But if I drag this on the image of another layer, it becomes a mask for this layer. So now only Kowalski's head is visible. However, if I drag it out and drag it inside of Kowalski, this becomes a nested layer, which means that whatever I drag on here will not go out of bounds of the topmost layer. Interesting. Oh, I see. This happens not only on the visible pixels, but also on the invisible pixels. Since Kowalski is just this square, that's why it's confined to the square. How do I make it apply only to pixels that are visible? Collapse all parents. That's cruel. Affinity Photo, clipping mask, only visible pixels. Rasterize to mask? Oh, what just happened? Okay, so say I want to add a blue highlight on the side of Kowalski. How do I make it so the highlight only applies to visible pixels? Because I don't want it on the background. I would probably have to mask him. Oh, what is happening here? And then the highlight would only appear here. But this is a lot of extra steps. In Photoshop, if I want to add a highlight, I can simply add a new layer, then hold Alt and click between in the two layers, and then simply paint my highlight onto wherever I want, and it only appears on the arm. It doesn't appear outside of it. But in Affinity Photo, I first have to select the subject, mask it, and once I do that, I can add a new layer, then move it outside like this, I mean. Wait, this has to be a mask. And now I can paint only on Kowalski, which seems like a lot of unnecessary work since I always do this. I always create clipping masks. I hope there's a simpler way to do this. Okay, back to the arms. So they're both in a group. And so first I need this sort of texture here that's similar to what he has on his forehead. And for that, I can just use a noise filter. Filters, noise, add noise, and see how much noise it adds. Let's do uniform noise and monochromatic. Wait, when I drag with my mouse on the screen left and right, it increases the slider. But what if I want to move to a different place of my image? I have to zoom out and then zoom in with my scroll wheel. I can't pick it up and drag. never mind. So we want something like this much. Beautiful. But what if I want to add it back later? Is there a way to make this non-permanent? Let's see. I think I saw live effects somewhere. Layer effects, live effects. Okay. So there should be a noise effect. Yes. Add noise. Oh, why is it applying it everywhere and not only on this layer? Interesting. Okay. How do I make it only apply to this group? Select it and then mask it. Now it's only applying on the group. Next, I'm going to need a bunch of highlights on the arms like these. So I want to clip a simple layer onto one of the arms and then paint only on the arms without touching the background. So let's do a new layer. Then I should add it inside one of the arms like this. And I should be able to paint it only on the arm. That's correct. Okay, now here comes a very important keyboard shortcut. Inside of Photoshop, I can hold Alt and drag left or right by pressing on my right mouse key to increase or decrease the brush size, and also drag up or down to increase or decrease the hardness. Does this exist on Affinity Photo? It's not the same keyboard shortcut for sure. Let's do settings with Command comma, go into shortcuts, and is there a search functionality? No. Increase brush size, Affinity Photo, shortcut. Selecting motorcycles and traffic lights. Okay, good news, it exists. It's Control Alt and then right or left for increasing and decreasing, and then up or down for increasing or decreasing the hardness. So let's make it something like this, and then also let's select a white pixel. That will be our highlight, and then let's paint on the arm like so. Erase a little bit of it, and I think I don't really want to see the noise now. Is there a smoothness slider? Rope mode. The brush is dragged as though it's attached with the rope. Useful for smooth selections. Yes. Length of the rope. Well, that didn't change anything. I'm looking for this. It's called smoothing in Photoshop. If you enable it, it lets you get these smooth lines. Do I enable the stabilizer? Oh, yes, it is the stabilizer. And it shows the actual rope. So where it begins and when it starts dragging my brush. That's interesting. Let's paint the highlights on the other arm. So now the arms look more like arms and they have a shape. Let's enable the noise. Well, that looks horrible. Can I double click to change it? A lot less, please. And let's do Gaussian noise. Okay, that's pretty good. Oh, I found a way to paint something on only visible pixels of a layer without it going out of bounds. Let's do this with the Arch Linux logo. I'm going to need some shadows behind the arms so it's more realistic. So I'm going to add a new layer, then move it inside of Arch Linux. And if I were to paint something now, it would paint inside visible and also invisible pixels of Arch Linux. But if I right click and choose rasterize and trim, now if I add a new layer, move it inside of Arch Linux, which means I created a clipping mask, and paint something on here, it only paints on the visible pixels. Now I'm not sure why this is not the default behavior, because I can't think of a reason why I would want to paint on invisible pixels. But nevertheless, there is a way. So let's add a shadow under the arms and then mask out the top here so that it looks like the shadow is coming from under the arm. Let's do the exact same thing for the other arm and erase off the excess. And let's decrease the opacity so that it's not 100% black. Very nice and subtle. Next, the Arch Linux logo needs a shadow of its own. In Photoshop, you could do this by double clicking on the side of the layer, which would bring up the layer style options. And here you can choose drop shadow. Let's see if that's the same in Affinity Photo. No. Layer effects. Are these the effects? Ooh, yes, these are the effects. There's a Gaussian blur effect here. Why is that here? I thought I would find it in the filter options, but good to know it's here. So let's add an outer shadow, increase the intensity, the offset, make the angle point to another way. Oh, it snaps into place. What if I hold the shift? It weirdly lags behind my mouse cursor, and the more I do it, the more it lags. Let's increase the radius to make the shadow bigger. And can I move the actual shadow with my mouse? In Photoshop, you can actually pick up the shadow and move it around, but here it seems like you can only do this with these sliders, which is okay. Oh, and this angle shows where the shadow is instead of where the light is. In Photoshop, the angle shows where the light is coming from. So the light's coming from here, and that's why the shadow is down there. And here it's the opposite. This is the angle of the shadow itself. I don't like how laggy this is. And before I leave, there's also a little light on the edges of this logo. So let's add that as well. Should be inside bevel and emboss. Pillow, inner, outer, emboss. Yes. Okay, it's inner emboss. I can increase the depth. Ooh, okay, I like this. Just needs time to update. Okay, I'm happy with that. Mr. Kowalski also has a shadow. So let's click on him and go into layer effects and add a shadow as well. So it doesn't seem to save all the preferences. So what I'm going to try to do is hold Alt and drag to copy the effect and then double click to change it from here. Let's make it slightly bigger with the radius. Now, one thing I must say I don't really like is when I'm moving these sliders around, Kowalski becomes pixelated. And then when I release, I can only then see the full effect. The same thing happened with the noise on the hands or the bevel and emboss on the Arch Linux logo. So that's not the best. A better live preview would be very nice. Next we have the gigantic feet. I yoinked these from the Linux Penguin, this gentleman right here. There he is, and I'm going to use the pen tool once again to cut these out. The pen tool is pretty much the same as in Photoshop. You can hold space to move the handles around, but I don't understand how it guesses where I want to put the next handle. It's insane. Here, it's suggesting me in green where I should put the next handle. How does it know? There we go. Ooh, one thing I'm wondering is if I can create a vector mask. So if I drag this curve on top of the image, does it create a mask with the curve? Doesn't seem to do that. So what if I want these points to be a mask, or in other words, a vector mask, just like in Photoshop? Does that exist? To add a vector mask, draw a filled vector object, example line or shape, which is to be your mask. Oh, so I need to fill it in. And now if I move it here, it should mask. Yes, beautiful. So we have one foot. And of course, the beautiful thing with a vector mask is you can choose a node tool, then click on one of the points and adjust them however you like. So if you want the foot to look like this, there you go. Let's duplicate this, then right click, transform and flip horizontal. So I have the second foot, resize them both so I can put them over the old tinier feet. Let's actually create a layer mask and mask out the old feet of Kowalski so they're no longer visible. Of course, on the Arch Linux logo, they're also going to need a shadow like this so that it's more three-dimensional, and down here as well. And also one shadow layer above the background so the feet cast a shadow on the ground as well. Beautiful. Now, probably no one would notice that Kowalski has two sides of hands. This one is actually sticking out here a little bit, so I'm going to mask that one as well. Beautiful. But what's bothering me is that he has two sets of hands. One's right here and the other one's by his side. So I want to remove those. I'm going to add a new layer, get my brush tool. Also, the stabilizer will be very handy here. And I'm going to paint in like this so that now this becomes his body and not his hand. On the other side as well. Beautiful. And next, to blend it in slightly, I'm going to pick a color from his actual body, then decrease the flow of my brush, increase the softness, and paint off the edges like so. Is this too sharp? Let's make it slightly less sharp, like this. On the other side. Beautiful. Next we have these mouse cursor icons, which in my true fashion I yoinked from somewhere else. This time it was from GitHub, source, SVG, light, and we have a bunch of mouse cursors. They're not the same because I couldn't be bothered. Let's select them all, resize them, actually resize them a lot, and position them all around Kowalski. Beautiful. See, when I click to move something, everything suddenly becomes a lot more pixelated and weird, and when I release, everything starts looking nice. This is something that I don't really like. Anyway, let's put all of these in a group with Control G. I hope that works. Then go to layer effects and let's add an outer glow to all of the icons. Okay, so if I pick the Arch blue color, does it not work? So I have the color picked with the color picker, but it doesn't actually apply. Why not? What if I want to do more than 100 pixels? Can I do 150? I can. Beautiful. Looks about right. One more thing, this Control Alt Shift E merge all layers. Oh, it does. And if I go to filter, is there a camera raw filter? Probably not. That sounds like Adobe trademark. Photoshop camera raw filter. How in Affinity Photo? Exactly what I'm wondering. The develop persona would be the closest match to that in Affinity Photo, but it can only be used on pixel-based layers. Develop persona. Okay. Weird names. So is it not under filters? Oh, there are different workspaces here. Liquify persona, so I can liquify Kowalski. Develop persona, this is like your camera raw filter. Tone mapping persona and export persona. Okay, let's go into develop persona. Ooh, and this is the camera raw filter. So is there an auto button? Doesn't look like so. This definitely looks a lot simpler compared to Photoshop. Photoshop gives you a lot more things to fidget with. I especially like to go into filter, camera raw filter, and then here inside of the color mixer to play with all the colors. But I can't seem to find it here in Affinity Photo. Nevertheless, camera raw filter exists, or develop persona exists, which is really good news. So let's go into the export persona and see how can we export this. Oh, what is this? Oh, you can draw a frame around something, Windows 7 style window, which I'm assuming would export only this part of the image. That's very nice. So I have to select this in order to be able to change the width and the height of the image. What if I do times 100? Oh, it just made this frame larger. So what if I want to upscale this image? And where's even the export button? I'm confused. Can I not export by going into File, Export? It's Control Alt Shift S. So let's do it the pro way. Oh, and this is more like the panel I expected. I can change the size, set the picture format, and change a bunch of settings. Beautiful. Let's export this. Photoshop, Affinity Photo. This one might even look better. So how was my Affinity Photo experience? Well, it took a little bit of time to understand how masks work and how clipping masks work, and also having to right-click and choose rasterize and trim in order to add a clipping mask on only the visible pixels of a layer was slightly confusing. Seems like an unnecessary step. Also, a couple things that I don't like very much is that the thumbnail previews load very slowly, and that when you try to do something, like move something on the screen, everything else becomes pixelated and blurry. But other than that, I've been able to recreate my thumbnail perfectly, just the same as with Photoshop. I only ran into issues because I didn't know how Affinity works. And once I explore all the keyboard shortcuts, who knows what's going to happen. So yeah, I've been able to do exactly what I do with Photoshop with Affinity Photo. That's pretty good. Well, I've decided to buy it. Right now it's on sale, so it cost me 37 euros, which is like $40. Oh, and if you like this wallpaper, it's from one of my wallpaper packs. Link in the description.